Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to our subreddit entitled People, where you'll hear stories about individuals who truly believe the world revolves around them and that they'll always get what they want, like the people featured here. My friends, in this episode, you're going to hear 6 incredibly entitled stories. The first story is absolutely wild. It's about a man willing to risk his life in a hospital to get what he wants. The second story involves Uppy encountering a crazy Karen at Walmart. And the third story comes with a little revenge on a Karen who cuts in line. I hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for more entitled people, stories in the future. I work overnight in my hospital's COVID ICU, and there's this one patient who is ridiculously entitled. Oh, how he loves to order all of us around. His favorite trick was to wait until we finished whatever we were doing and were heading out the door, then think of 2 or 3 more things he needed immediately. He'd get furious when we didn't turn around and do it right away. Sweet mercy, you better believe that call light was practically glued to his hand. He was basically an all-around attention seeker, as if being in the ICU doesn't already get you enough attention. Most people beg us to leave them alone for a little while so they can sleep, but I digress. When he arrived, he was critical enough that we had to intubate him and put him on a ventilator. After 3 days, he'd improved enough to get off the ventilator, and we switched him to a heated high-flow cannula, which is a good thing. It allows us to gradually ease people down to, hopefully, just a regular nasal cannula. It also meant he could eat, so he would have us get him Jell-O, popsicles, ice water, snacks, and more, at least hourly, often more frequently than that, all night long. He didn't even eat all of them. He'd take a couple of bites, throw the rest away, and want another one 10 minutes later. He just wanted someone to come in and wait on him. One particular night, about 2 weeks after his admission, the doctor restricted him to only water until the morning because his sugar levels were running high. The patient did not like this because it eliminated 75% of his means of getting attention. So, he decided that taking off his high-flow oxygen, causing his oxygen levels to plummet, was a great idea, because obviously we respond to those alarms incredibly quickly. After the 3rd or 4th time of him deliberately doing this, I went in, sat down, and had a blunt talk with him. I said, I know it's boring being in isolation, and it stinks that no visitors are allowed. Yes, the hospital's cable plan leaves much to be desired, but you're hurting yourself by doing this. Every time you take off your oxygen, your levels take longer to recover. I get that you don't like being here, and I don't blame you one bit, but you're sabotaging your own recovery and making your stay longer by doing this. Is there anything I can do to help you relax and get some sleep tonight? He said he supposed he could use his laptop, but he needed reading glasses to see the screen. If I brought him some, he'd stop taking his oxygen off. I told him, I'm sorry, but we don't have disposable reading glasses. I can try to help you increase the text size on your computer, and in the morning, maybe you can have a family member pick up your glasses from home and drop them off with security. He said the nurse has some out there. I'll just use those. I explained that those were her personal reading glasses and she needs them. Besides, in isolation rooms, whatever comes in has to be disposable or your personal property. He then demanded, have the hospital optometrist come in and give me new ones. At this point, it was about midnight. I told him, we don't have a hospital optometrist, and even if we did, you're in COVID isolation. Only medically necessary staff are allowed in this unit. Can someone bring you yours? He was getting really mad now and said, you'll get me an optometrist. I have a caseworker who oversees my care across 3 countries, and I'll call her and tell her, and she'll make you bring someone in to give me new reading glasses. His rant went on, but at this point I was done. I repeated that none of this would happen because he was in COVID isolation, but if he could think of something reasonable we could do, we'd be glad to help. He was still making demands about glasses, so I left because we were clearly not getting anywhere. Contrary to his apparent belief, he's not the only patient in the unit. About 2 minutes later, his call light went off. I went to see what he needed, and he wanted the nurse's glasses. I told him no. The call light went on again, and he wanted the glasses. I told him no again. The call light went on once more, and he still wanted the glasses. Are you kidding me right now? I told him no. He hit the call light again, and at this point, I didn't even say, can I help you? I just told him it didn't matter how many times he asked, the nurse wasn't giving him her glasses. I added that he's a grown man who knows better than to behave like this, and that our unit is full. We need to see to everyone's needs, not just his. If he had a real need, we'd be happy to help. But he needed to accept that he wasn't getting the nurse's glasses. So, you know what he did? He took off his oxygen. Now we're playing this game again. I gowned up, ran in, put it back in his nose and left. He waited until I was outside getting wiped down, looked me straight in the eye and took it off again. I gowned up again, went back in, told him he had to leave it on, put it back in his nose and left. He took it off yet again. At this point, I tapped out because I'm a patient person, but this was beyond ridiculous and I was about to use some colorful language from my Navy days. Another nurse took over. She went in and told him that if a patient is a danger to themselves, we have to restrain them. She also told him she wasn't as nice as me, so he had one chance to stop. He let her leave, then took off his oxygen again. One thing about this nurse, she doesn't bluff. 5 minutes later, his hands were restrained. Honestly, the reason I put up with his nonsense for so long was because we try our hardest not to restrain anyone. At least now he couldn't take off his oxygen, and maybe I could get some work done. But nope, he had a new game, throwing a screaming fit. I swear, this grown man in his late 60s was screaming that it wasn't fair, we were mean, why were we doing this to him, and so on. It was a full-on tantrum with no medical excuse for his behavior. His vitals were now completely out of whack, and oh boy, he was sure getting all the attention he wanted because we were all in the room trying to get him to stop before he hurt himself further. The nurse told him to stop because he was endangering his own life. He screamed, "Then tell that woman to give me her glasses!" He then held his breath like a 2-year-old. By this point, he'd gotten his heart rate so high and his oxygen so low that we had no choice but to sedate him and intubate him, putting him back on a ventilator, which he's still on now and may not come off of again, all because he didn't get his way. Oh my goodness gracious, guys, you'd think someone in their late 60s would be more mature and know better than this. I can't believe he held his breath and was willing to risk his life just to get those nurses' glasses. I love this person's comment. This isn't just a person willing to endanger himself to get what he wants. This is a person who's willing to let everyone else around him suffer to get what he wants. Guys, I have so much respect for nurses and doctors who probably deal with this stuff regularly, especially during COVID. The way OP kept her cool after he kept spamming his call button for absolute nonsense is incredible. Next story. I was at Walmart the other day, looking at decorations displayed in the main aisle across from the electronics department, where I used to work. I haven't been there in about 3 years, but occasionally I'll get recognized. I'm guessing this was one of those times because I was dressed in all black, nothing even remotely blue. Anyway, I heard a sharp female voice behind me. I turned around, and there was Karen. She said, "Hey, where are the kitchen utensils?" I told her, "In the home area. It's up front by the pharmacy now." I said this out of pure reflex. I was so used to customers asking me where things were that I think I'll always respond immediately by telling them exactly where to look. Karen said, "I know that. I was just up there and couldn't find them." I told her, "Well, that's where they are. Excuse me." I moved to get past her, which was difficult because she had maneuvered her cart to block all foot traffic in the busiest part of the store. To my surprise, she actually moved. She had a strange look on her face, though, kind of like a deer in headlights with a lot of rapid blinking. As I walked past, I noticed her taking her phone out and dipping down a side aisle, hustling. Oh Lord, I wasn't sure what was about to happen, but I knew it was going to be loud. I was walking down another aisle when she burst out in front of me, slightly out of breath, holding her phone out like she was talking on speaker with what I assumed was the customer service line. Karen, out of breath, said, "So, I'm at Walmart, and oh look, here she is, you, come here." She was panting while pointing and beckoning at me. I was honestly confused about what was happening. I owed this woman exactly none of my time. She came up to me and said, "Say hi to Facebook. What's your name?" shoving the phone into my face. This Karen was recording me in a Facebook Live video. I said, "Hi, Facebook, why are you friends with her?" Karen responded, "Who? She's got a sense of humor." How cute. She won't tell me her name, and this is Walmart. Today's December 17th, 2018, at 10:30 p.m. Then she ended the video and said, "I have you on video. I'll be sharing this with the city's Walmart Facebook page. Have a good day." So, yeah, it's now 2 days later, and as far as I know, Walmart doesn't really conduct investigations through Facebook, so I think I'm safe. Guys, my friends, I wouldn't even know what to do if some random person decided to put me on blast on Facebook Live in front of a bunch of people. I think I'd have to grab her phone and smash it. I don't know. What would you do if someone randomly put you on Facebook Live, harassing you like that? I also love this person's comment. That's so sad. She sounds like the type of woman who wonders why her adult children move so far away and never visit anymore. That's kind of sad, but it's still no excuse to take out your phone and record somebody for not helping you. Next story. Airports at this time of year are crazy. and I understand the frustration many people have when flying. My husband and I were flying home from seeing family, and our flight had been delayed for hours. Annoyed from family time and waiting in a crowded airport, I wasn't exactly in the mood to be messed with. We were flying with an airline I'll call Northeast. For those who don't know, they don't have assigned seats. Basically, you get a zone and a number to decide when you board, and seats are first come, first served, kind of like pulling numbers at a deli. After hours of waiting, we were finally called to get in line. We were number 54, and this woman was number 59 because I heard her speaking to her partner and child, complaining about being so far back in line. We were there for a few minutes, so naturally my husband and I were having our own conversation. She stood and shuffled to move in front of us, hoping we wouldn't notice. I pulled my husband back into our place in line and continued our conversation, disregarding her. I heard her huff and mumble to her husband as I continued to ignore her. She tried multiple times to innocently pass us. Every time I maneuvered to block her, like, "Lady, we aren't even moving and we have numbers. How are you going to try to cut me?" I subtly pointed out that we were ahead of her by saying, "Hey babe, we're number 54, right?" He responded, "We sure are." He could see I was getting annoyed at this woman. Already irritated from being there for hours and just wanting to get on the darn plane, I had to deal with someone cutting us off over and over. I was getting more agitated as she kept attempting to slip by, loudly sighing at me for not moving aside. If this were an innocent mistake, I wouldn't have cared, but this woman decided she was more important than everyone else, and nothing annoys me more than entitled people. We started moving forward and I aggressively played chicken with this woman as she kept trying to slip by. Alas, I was too passive, and she used her son to physically push me out of the way. As we got to the counter, she got her way, and her family ended up ahead of us in the tunnel. I was fuming at this point. As her arrogance grew, so did my anger. My husband tried to calm me down, but after hours of nonsense, this woman really got to me. I mean, who does that? Entitled people, that's who. Not only was she willfully malicious, but she used her child to break social rules, teaching him it's okay to ignore rules and push past people. I was furious. Her small indiscretion had me close to snapping. I decided to remain calm and be the bigger person until she turned and smirked at me, giving me a little wink. "It's on, lady." It seems the revenge gods were smiling on me that day, urging me to act out in some very petty revenge. Her family picked out the last empty row, an emergency exit row with extra footroom, and she happily settled into the corner, preparing for a nice sleep. I, never one to turn down an opportunity, took the only other 2 seats together for my husband and myself. How fortunate that my seat was directly behind her. Thus began my fun. I stowed my bag and jacket under my seat, but made sure to angle my belongings so that, with enough pressure from my foot, I could push and manipulate her seat. I spent the entire flight slamming my foot down on my jacket, preventing her from moving her seat back into a comfortable position. Assuming the seat was defective, she complained, but the flight attendant politely informed her that the flight was full and there were no open seats. She huffed and agreed to spend the rest of her flight in the defective seat, attempting to get situated to sleep. I could see her face as she angled her pillow against the window, so I knew every time she started falling asleep. Poor woman, every time she drifted off, there must have been some terrible turbulence, given how her seat would suddenly jolt forward and shake her awake. Halfway through, after some grumbling, she convinced her husband to switch with her, hoping she'd be more comfortable in another seat and could actually get some sleep. But what do you know? I was feeling a bit cramped and asked my husband to politely switch with me. He smirked and allowed me to sit behind her. I guess this seat must have been defective too, because she couldn't lean her seat back either. In the end, the entitled woman didn't get more than 2 minutes of sleep during that entire 5-hour flight. I made sure of that. It might seem extreme or super petty, but there you have it. Play foolish games, win foolish prizes. The funny thing is, she probably wanted to cut in front of people to get on the plane first and take a nap. Was saving that little bit of time really worth the 5 hours of sleep she didn't get? Absolutely not, but entitled people aren't that smart, are they? Next story. This occurred at a large chain sporting goods store on Black Friday. Before the sale began, shoppers had been lining up in front of the tables covered with cloth to get the doorbuster items underneath. When the bell sounds and the cloth is lifted, I'm quickly yet respectfully rifling through the table of highly discounted yoga pants in various colors when I get shoved pretty aggressively from behind. I ignore it and continue doing what I'm doing. Then there's another shove, and this time a screechy voice calls out, "Make some room or move your butt!" Keep in mind that this table is very large, so it's not like I was hogging prime real estate all for myself. Karen just wanted in and did not care who she had to run over to get to it. Rather than make a scene, I wedged myself against another shopper, allowing her some room to slide closer. I have the last pair of size medium black pants on the table draped over my arm, looking through sizes of another color, when I feel the pants get pulled off my arm. I look up, and of course, it's Karen. I say, "Hey, those are mine." I grab onto them, to which she replies with an obnoxious smirk, "Not until you pay for them." She starts to pull them, trying to get them out of my hands. At this point, I know it's only going to go downhill, so rather than be on the 6 o'clock news for fighting on Black Friday, I cut my losses and decide to leave the table. My husband, who's been watching me from a spot about 20 feet away, is half laughing as he sees me retreat empty-handed and defeated. He says, "Cheer up!" as he pushes a shopping cart toward me filled nearly to the top. He says, "Here you go." And wouldn't you know, my amazing husband had taken the pushy woman's cart while she was busy digging through yoga pants. We smile at each other, and I happily roll her cart and all of her Black Friday finds to the other end of the store. Then, I turn her purse into customer service on my way out of the door. I mean, none of that's hers until she pays for it, right? OP has such an amazing husband. That was the perfect thing to do in this situation. No damage, no assault, no police called, no 6 o'clock news. Guys, I've never thought about this before, but what would happen if you were in a grocery store or clothing store like this and just took somebody's loaded cart for yourself? Now, I know it's a silly thing to do, but what if you're strapped for time and somebody already has all the items you want in their cart? Can you take it, right? I'm asking for my friend Karen. Next story. Every person who's worked in the ER knows that Mondays are the busiest days of the week, and also when all the crazies come out. This day was no different. I worked as a nurse in triage where patients initially get assessed in the front before going to the back. This lady comes in on an ambulance, but because her symptoms did not indicate an emergency, she was put in stretcher triage to wait her turn. She was in a lot of pain after assessment, and I recognized her symptoms as being caused by gallstones. Painful but not life-threatening. We put her on a stretcher, started an IV, drew labs, and hooked her up to a monitor just in case. A few minutes later, the patient's daughter comes in through the front door. One look at her and we knew she would cause problems. She had everything from the shoes to the haircut. A classic rich Karen. When she saw that her mom was still in the front and hadn't seen a doctor yet, she started to scream that she knew the CEO of the hospital and that we would all be fired if we didn't get her mom back to see a doctor right now. We explained that her mom has a history of gallstones and that even she was saying she had this pain many times before. We also explained that we were really busy, there were no rooms available in the back, and we'd get her back there as soon as we could. She eventually calmed down but was still antsy. About an hour later, another patient, CP, comes in and is put on a stretcher beside the patient and the patient's daughter. This patient had worrying complaints, but on initial assessment, we could not find anything wrong. As a nurse, you learn to always trust your gut. When your gut sounds an alarm, you listen. Something about this patient was setting my alarm bells off, but his vitals were normal, and I had no solid evidence to declare him an emergency. I hooked him up to the monitor and kept a very close eye on him. I let the charge nurse know of my concerns, and she said to let her know as soon as something changed. Not 5 minutes later, something changed. I should explain that this hospital was a level 1 trauma center, meaning we get all the bad cases, from car crashes to gunshot victims. Back to CP, I was taking vital signs of the mom when I looked over to CP and noticed a worrying change in his rhythm. I stopped with the mom to start assessing CP to see what's going on. That did not sit well with the mom's daughter. She actually grabbed my arm and told me to finish with her mom first, as she was here before him. I jerked my arm free and said I had to make sure CP was okay. As I turned around to CP, his rhythm went into V-fib, which is a life-threatening rhythm. I called the nurse to inform her of CP's condition, all the while unhooking CP from the monitor and throwing his bed into drive as I started to push him back. The patient's daughter actually jumps in front of the stretcher and stops it. She's screaming that her mom was here first and needed to be tended to before CP, and she was screaming that I was a liar and she was going to get me fired. I'm usually a mild-tempered person, but knowing that CP was literally minutes from dying, I said to the patient's daughter, "You have a choice. Get out of my way or get run over." As I started to push the stretcher forward, I'm really good at pushing stretchers fast and getting patients where they need to go in a hurry. It's one of the reasons I was part of the trauma team. The patient's daughter tried to stand firm, but she saw that I wasn't going to stop, and she jumped out of the way just as I was an inch from hitting her. Unfortunately, she did not move fast enough and I ended up running over her foot. At this point, I didn't care. I just got the patient back to the trauma room, leaving the patient's daughter screaming and crying lying on the floor. We spent about 30 minutes on CP, but he ended up not making it. By the time I got back up front, the patient and the patient's daughter had been taken to the back to see a doctor, but my charge nurse warned me that they were filing a complaint against me. A few days later, the actual CEO of the hospital came to visit me on my next shift. He was known to be a kind and fair man. Since this happened during the time before cameras were put into ERs, he had to take what happened from word of mouth. Apparently, the patient's daughter said that I assaulted her several times and put her mom's life in danger by not assessing her properly and that I should be fired. I calmly explained exactly what happened and that the patient's daughter's actions might have caused CP to die because of the delays she caused. When I got to the part about what I said to the patient's daughter and running over her foot, the CEO actually started laughing and then tried to cover his mouth to hide his laughter. He explained that the patient's daughter was a friend of his sister and he knows what kind of person she is. Not only did I not get fired, but he put a personal note in my file praising my actions. On my next review, I got a large raise and a bonus thanks to the CEO's note. Guys, this story is absolutely insane. This is the first story where a Karen says she knows somebody, and she actually does. This person's comment sums the story up perfectly. This person should not be pressing charges, the family of CP should. Minutes matter in these types of situations, and she may have changed the outcome by screaming in your face and stalling you. Next story. I do deliveries around our town, and as such, I need gas to do so. There's this one gas station I hit up every morning before work because the gas is cheapest. Since I've been stopping there a minimum of 3 times a week for the last 6 years, I've gotten to know the owner and a few of the longtime staff there. They're all good people and treat me nicer than typical employees do, so I try to treat them with as much respect as I possibly can. One morning while I'm filling up, one of the female employees, let's call her Rachel for the story, is standing idly by one of the pumps. While my gas is being filled, I strike up a conversation. She tells me she isn't doing so hot because she's supposed to take out the trash from the outside bins and put it in the dumpster around the side of the building. The way the building is designed, there's only one way to get to the dumpster to put anything in it, and that area is clearly marked with signs and paint saying, "Do not park here or block the dumpster." I look over, and there's a caravan of about 5 minivans parked around the area. Most are in legit parking spaces, but the biggest one, with a massive roof rack, is parked awkwardly in front of the dumpster, completely blocking it off. I ask Rachel if she has asked them to move, and she says they told her they would move when they were done, and that was over 30 minutes ago. I feel for Rachel and her sad face at the time, so I tell her that I'll make it up to her. After putting the nozzle back up and getting my car ready, I drive over to where the van is parked and park my car in the first open parking spot behind it, effectively completely blocking it in. I get out of my car and walk about 5 steps away when a screeching Karen pokes her head out of the front window of the van and says, "Hey, move your car now, you jerk!" I tell her, "Oh, well, that's not a parking spot." And she says, "Well, yeah, that's why I'm trying to get out of it." I tell her, "Hold on, I'll just be a minute." I proceed to walk inside the store to get my morning meal as I hear Karen screaming for me to come back as the door shuts. In the store, I notice the place is overrun with families buying travel snacks. They're all milling about, but a few are looking out the window saying, "I wonder what Karen's yelling about." They're clearly all in her caravan. By the time I grab my food and drink and make it to the checkout line, she has stormed her way in and is trying to tell me to move my car. I tell her I can't leave, that would be stealing, so I'm going to buy my stuff and then leave. She huffs at this and notices everybody in front of her is a member of her traveling party, so she just glares at me the whole time. I finally make it to the front after 10 minutes and loudly go, "Oh wait, shoot, this isn't what I wanted." I proceed to leave my spot in line and browse for another 5 to 10 minutes. Luckily, I was still very early for getting to work, so I was milking it for all it was worth. Karen is fuming when I make it to the back of the line. Someone else is getting in line in front of me, and Karen's trying to tell him to move so I can go first. The owner, who we'll call Jess, tells her that she isn't allowed to talk to customers that way, and one more outburst from her, and she'll get kicked out of the store. Karen mutters to herself but is silent. I go up to the checkout, moving and talking as slowly as I can, and ask for a lottery ticket as well. After paying, since no one's behind me, I scratch it off, and what do you know? I win a free ticket, so I buy another one and proceed to scratch it off. Karen, to that point, had been mildly tolerable, but then she let out this unholy screech and told me to stop wasting her time. The owner told her to leave. Karen started to refuse, and Jess picked up her phone, threatening to call the cops. Karen then swiftly leaves, now yelling at her caravan as to why they have to wait. I thank Jess for all she's done so far and explain what was going on really slowly. She laughs and tells me how much she hates people who park there, and how they get all defensive when you tell them they can't park there, but this is the first time anybody's ever gotten their comeuppance over it. So I leave and see Rachel standing near my vehicle, doing her best not to laugh. I load up my car and ask her if everything's better, and she nods enthusiastically. I've moved my car to the other side and watched them all leave one by one, but not before Karen pulled out in front of somebody and almost hit them. These stories are a wild ride of entitlement and clever retaliation, and I'm all in for the satisfying comeuppance. The COVID ICU story is jaw-dropping. I've worked in high-stress healthcare settings, and this patient's tantrums, yanking off oxygen and demanding glasses, are infuriating. His breath-holding stunt landing him back on a ventilator? Self-inflicted chaos. OP's patience and the nurse's restraint threat were spot on. It's a stark reminder that entitlement can literally risk lives. The Walmart Karen encounter is bizarre. Recording OP on Facebook Live for not helping as a non-employee? Unhinged. I've been accosted by nosy strangers, and her deer-in-headlights reaction shows she thrives on drama. OP's witty hi. Facebook jab was perfect. Walmart ignoring her rant is the justice she deserved. The airport line to cutting saga is maddening. I've dealt with queue jumpers, and Karen using her kid to shove past OP is shameless. The seat-kicking revenge keeping her awake for 5 hours is deliciously petty. Her smug wink backfired spectacularly. Entitled folks always underestimate consequences. The Black Friday yoga pants theft is peak chaos. Karen's aggressive shoving and snatching are inexcusable. I've shopped hectic sales, and her not yours until paid excuse is bold. OP's husband stealing her cart and turning in her purse? Genius. No violence, just pure poetic justice. The ER gallstone drama is intense. Karen's daughter blocking a critical patient stretcher is reckless and dangerous. I've seen ER chaos, and OP's quick action saved lives. The CEO's praise and raise were well earned. Her foot injury was her own fault. Entitlement in life-or-death situations is unforgivable. The gas station blockade is classic petty revenge. Karen's caravan blocking the dumpster and her screeching demands are entitled nonsense. OP's slow-motion shopping to trap her van was brilliant. The owner's backup and Karen's near-collision exit? Perfect karma. These stories prove clever compliance outshines selfish entitlement every time. That, my friends, brings us to the end of another Entitled People episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, do hit that thumbs up button, and if you're not subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can hear more stories. If you missed the last episode of Entitled People, check it out if you haven't. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. I really, really mean it.